Reality is making a comeback, especially in girls' sports where young women have been told to stay silent. For years, the media framed the story as, quote, transgender rights, while girls lost trophies, roster spots, privacy, and safety. But this summer, the Supreme Court cut through all those lies. Justice Thomas even called the word games for what they are, a lie to the public. And the court recognized biology matters and states can and should protect girls. So what happens now in Virginia? Meanwhile, a big snafu happened in our state capital, where leftists were in such a hurry to push through pot shops that they created a legal gap where on paper, even selling marijuana to kids could go unpunished. We discuss all this and more from the Family Foundation. I'm your host, Candi Cushman, with our president, Victoria Cobb. Well, welcome, everyone. Glad to have you back with us for another Speak Up Virginia. And, you know, we're a few days out from the big 250th anniversary celebration, I guess birthday, I should call it, of America. What did you do, Victoria?
I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, everybody went to D.C. and saw the great fireworks show. We didn't actually go anywhere. We had just gotten a puppy that day. And so, honestly, we stayed home and played with our puppy. We watched it on TV, if that counts for anything, which, by the way, Donald Trump spoke so late and so long that I actually had to watch it the next day because it didn't even run till the next day, but I fell asleep at the end of the president's speech because I was just tired. Yeah. But anyway, the fireworks were eventually, when I saw them, awesome. And we did watch the video of a drone show that they did for the folks out at the Air Force Academy because our kid's there, so we wanted to see what he was seeing. But
well, how old is this puppy? Is this like a newborn?
Yeah. So he's 8 weeks. Okay. So they have to be with their mama for 8 weeks, and then you can finally get them. So yeah, he's really young and very cute, and also a lot to train right now.
Is he crying and everything at night?
Yeah, he cries. Like, he's fine. Actually, he's fine in his bed. He just cries if he has to go out, which, of course, is like a newborn. Like, in the middle of the night, you're taking the puppy out.
That's just what you need, Victoria.
I guess we had forgotten those early years. You know, we have, our kids are older now, so I think we had forgotten. Anyway, it's all good, but yes, it's a little bit of work.
And I hear his name is Winston.
His name is Winston.
Is this after
cute.
Churchill?
It is. We've always had, it's interesting, it's a slight deviation because we've always had generals, so it was like Stonewall Jackson. We called him Jackson, and then Beauregard was our last dog, and so yeah.
He's moved up then.
It's a little different, but still in the same sort of vein, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so did you have a good 4th?
Yeah, it was very eventful. We spent time with family. Okay. I will say, two things happened that are worth mentioning. One, I got rescued by a lifeguard while tubing down some rapids.
That doesn't sound like that went well.
I don't know if I want to repeat that experience. I might just
tubing. You're not even like, for a minute when you said that, I thought you meant like whitewater rafting or something. Tubing.
No, I'm in tube.
Where did the tube go?
The tube was so big, my little hands were like, I had no control at all with navigation. I was just at this tube's mercy, and it flipped me.
Was it the James, or did you go somewhere outside of Richmond?
It was in a different state, gotcha. Yeah. So it flipped me. I was stuck under it. Lifeguard actually had to come over. The funny part is I heard my husband yelling, "Is that you, Candi?" Like,
well, if it's up on top of you, I guess he can't tell.
Well, I look like a drowned rat too, so... Yeah, but we did get home late after that. We got a flat tire.
Oh, golly. Your 4th was eventful.
It was a mess. We drove in a thunderstorm, but because we got home so late, we watched President Trump.
Okay, so you were in time to, I mean, they were late, so that's good. They waited for you.
Yeah, so that was, it was.
I feel bad for all the people in D.C. that had to wait through the rain and leave and come back and the whole thing, but.
Yeah.
But it did look like you put on a big show. I mean, it did, for all the hype and all the talk. It was record-setting fireworks and, all the performances, so at least I thought they pulled off what they said they were going to, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, all of the 4th celebrations did have me thinking about our last episode where we talked about socialists running for Congress and in cities across America. And, we talked about what that means and how they express how much hate they have for America, right, when we're celebrating the uniqueness of this country and what makes it great. And, it was interesting because you had that going on, and then you had the World Cup, the soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all these foreigners coming to watch their teams.
That has been fun.
Yeah, so I guess the rest of the planet didn't get the socialist memo that you're supposed to hate America.
I know. I think once they got here, I think they had that memo, and they got here, and it sounds like they were like, wait, wait, we don't hate America. What do we do? That's what was kind of fun about it, is they, I think, had been told, or maybe had been given the impression that they should hate America, but kind of liked it when they got here.
Well, one guy even said the media owes America an apology. Like his media, I think it was England, our media owes the America an apology because this is way better than what I've been told. So I thought we would just throw, together a string of some of those comments.
They were fun.
This land is huge, and you have so much possibilities that we don't have in Europe. So yeah, you have a great country.
I fall in love with this country, and this was so emotional. I even cried in the stadium.
It's a huge departure from what he was expecting before traveling to follow the German soccer team in its World Cup run.
To be honest, I was a bit scared or had the fear to travel to the United States. News about shootings and criminals and that the country is not safe. Bob takes us home. It's great. America is great.
Sebastian met a group of strangers who offered him a ride to his hotel.
Media owes America a huge apology because it's nothing like it's being portrayed back home. I've been out here for a few weeks now making videos on my experiences in America, and people are shocked. These are the responses back home. I'm getting hate for saying how good America is because people just don't believe what I'm saying. And I just need to say to everyone, if you don't believe it, you have to come out here and try it for yourself.
Well, it is funny to watch, but also heartbreaking in a way because it takes foreigners to remind Americans what they have that they've taken for granted, how we're so blessed here.
I don't think there's any question that when we hear all the people crying about, socialism and how great it is, they have no idea what they've literally taken for granted. And I love that these foreigners pointed out so many things that are just, Buc-ee's or soda refills but if you've gone to Europe, like even having ice in your glass is really nice in America. Like there are things that I think we have an abundance, and people don't realize what that really means. When there's an abundance, like we are just a blessed nation financially in many, many ways, and it just creates opportunities. And I loved all the things they pointed out, like especially as they traveled around and just went to the different, and America is, I think they also pointed out just how beautiful America is in all its different places, that you don't need to leave America because there's so many different sort of geographic areas and terrains and all the things. So anyway, it was fun. I'm glad I bring them over all the time to remind us, because we need that reminder. I think we do. I think even we take it for granted.
Yeah. I think I'll just go back and watch some of those.
Yeah, just to remind ourselves, this is pretty good stuff we have here. Anyway.
All right. Well, taking a note toward more sobering topics, switching back to that, we do have several important updates here in Virginia. I'm just going to start out with this big snafu that happened in Richmond. Now I do want to cue in everyone. We have a major Supreme Court case update to talk about that really impacts families across the state. But first, let's just talk about this big mess up, more ridiculousness coming out of Richmond that just kind of reveals a lot about the agenda here and how radical it is. But basically, apparently, the Democrats were in such a big rush to put pot shops and get it in through our budget that, they skipped all the well thought out legislative process where you have hearings and committees where maybe some things would come out that you need to and things get cleaned up. They skipped all that. And the result was a rather embarrassing error. Tell us about it, Victoria.
I mean, this is the thing. And we knew there would be problems. You can't create an entire industry and regulate it in a budget. That was going to be a disaster. So it was sort of predictable. But what they've done is they essentially said, we're going to delay implementation of this new market that we're creating for marijuana until 2027. But in doing so, what they also did is they had some language they needed to repeal, some existing criminal statutes, like, we arrest certain people for marijuana now. So they repealed part of the law immediately, but then didn't put in the new law until next year. And so that left a 1-year gap, basically, where literally it doesn't, if you read it verbatim, you can't even arrest children, people giving marijuana to children, because there's no law like this year, and there's no new law until next year. It's
So anyway. They basically, if my understanding is right, took out all of the criminal codes surrounding marijuana, or made that void with putting nothing in between till 2027.
They kind of missed a year of what's the interim, and they should have just left it alone until next year.
So you could have kids consuming it, or people selling to kids, or pot shops wherever they want to be, next to school. Technically.
And it was even so confusing that the Virginia police departments were confused, and that I think really led to some interesting conversations. So apparently, prosecutors discovered this error when they started combing through the wording that the governor had signed. But the bottom line is they even the state police lieutenant sent out a internal email, I guess, that basically said that there's,
yeah, this was kind of fascinating because you had I guess everyone's looking at it, prosecutors, police.
Yeah.
So you got this lieutenant that sends an email saying, oh, wait, there's the way they put it, there's no Code of Virginia violations related to marijuana as of July 1st. But then the superintendent had to come back in.
Right. Awkward.
Yeah. I think that's Jeff Katz or some, maybe if I had that name right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I obviously read way too much about all this because it was just kind of...
Yeah, it was very entertaining because then
the
the Democrats who were in charge of this process were trying to make the Republicans who were complaining about it look like, oh, that's ridiculous, that didn't happen. But then you've got the police even saying, well, yeah, that's kind of how it reads. So it was completely embarrassing. And you got a statement out of former Attorney General Jason Miyares. You want to read some of that excerpt so we can put them up on the screen?
He did not hold back at all. Just really this bumble that they made. And he actually explained that this was kind of a really serious error, actually. So I'll just read some excerpts and we'll put some on the screen here. But he says, I warned that rushing marijuana commercialization through Virginia would lead to reckless governing. And this week, that warning came true. So that's what he said. And again, this is former Attorney General Jason Miyares saying this. And then he says, this is not a minor technical glitch. And I just, on the side here, if you read all the media reports and everything, that's how you were made to feel. This is a little minor technical. It's all right. We're going to clean it up. So he's saying, no, this is major. He says, quote, this is what happens when ideology outruns competence. Governor Spanberger and legislative Democrats were so determined to deliver a marijuana retail market that they didn't take the time to make sure basic child protection statutes stayed on the books in the meantime. So I could go on here, but he was calling on them to actually
come back into special session and fix it.
This.
And I think it's interesting that he points out, like, they didn't even pay attention to the kids, because actually when they were having hearings about marijuana all the way through the legislature, because we were having hearings on a bill, and when we were having it, it was like that was a part. Our team kept getting up there and saying, like, we have a child safety issue with marijuana, and they just did not want to hear anything about the safety issues during the hearings either. So I think it's interesting that just didn't even, all they wanted to hear about was who's making money and where and when and how fast and what does the state get about it. They didn't care about the kids in the hearings when we were talking about the bills. Then they rushed through this process of the budget, and voila, they didn't think about the kids either. And so it's kind of not surprising. And
clearly, that was not the priority at all. Like you're saying, that their agenda was rushing this through. Now, Victoria, I did read that it's okay, crisis averted. They cleaned up the code language.
Oh yeah, they were very fast to say that. The governor, was sort of like, no big deal. That was the statement. But I will tell you how they cleaned it up. I think is going to get called into question. So there's something called the Code Commission. This is a very boring part of state government, but there's a Code Commission, and it's a bunch of individuals who are tasked with very specifically technical adjustments when bills are made, like spelling errors and things that are misnumbered, and when sometimes bills refer back to parts of the code that have been removed. It's literally just technical stuff, and that Code Commission is allowed to make those little tiny fixes. If the Code Commission has a more substantive fix, they have to package it up, and the General Assembly has to affirm it. They can't, thankfully, unelected individuals can't just willy-nilly change the laws that pass. So thankfully, if there's something substantive, it's supposed to go back to the legislature. Well, the Code Commission is what fixed this, and they basically undeleted all the criminal codes. I think it's hard to say that that's technical. I mean, yes, everybody knows a mistake was made, but I'm not so sure if I were somebody trying to defend, let's say, somebody marijuana to a kid or whatever.
Yeah, or driving under the influence or something.
And then they get arrested. They show up in court and say, look, there's no law. They say, oh, we fixed it. I would argue the authority of the Code Commission does not allow them to make that fix. So it's just a question of, is it technical or is it substantial?
Yeah, because I'm so glad you said that, because I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, crisis averted, they fixed it up in the criminal code, and then wait a minute.
Like, who fixed it and when? Because there was no General Assembly.
That means we could write anything in the laws, and then they go and rewrite it with this commission.
It's bad enough that you can do something like create an entire market in the budget. That is bad enough.
Yeah.
Then the idea that you could fix it in a Code Commission should be even more alarming. So, yeah, the way we make government and laws, it should alarm all Virginians, I think.
Well, and even if they do get this fixed, I just want to point out there is still a crisis for families and kids,
absolutely.
even the way the law was written.
Even if they've written it to their best, they're going to harm people.
Because they have just 1,000 feet away, you can open up a pot shop from, besides, I think, schools or churches, and even closer than that, maybe even as close as 500 feet, you can have promotion, advertising for marijuana.
And ask the hospitals where kids show up having digested somebody's gummy that was in a home or near, that they didn't even know. I mean, this stuff is packaged often as if it's kid friendly. I mean, it's not just smoking.
Right.
People think of smoking a joint, but no, this is in all sorts of products that look like they're for kids, and you get a problem when that happens.
Well, and as much trouble as our teens are having now, I do not think they should have to have a big marijuana pot advertisement 500 feet away from their school. It's so irresponsible. So
yeah, we have a real problem coming. Thankfully delayed to 2027, but still a big problem coming.
All right, well, we'll keep you posted on that and if there is another vote that has to happen. But in the meantime, I do have to get to this huge Supreme Court decision because I know
we got to get some good news too, right?
Yeah, this is good news, and I know you have a lot to say on this, Victoria. And this is an issue that we've fought for at the Family Foundation and with our legal center for a long time in the state. But the big headline here, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard by now, is that the U.S. Supreme Court acknowledged that biology, yes, indeed, does matter and affect real life, and states, because of that, can indeed protect girls, especially in girls' sports settings. So tell us about it, Victoria.
Yeah, this was a case. It was actually two cases that came together, one related to West Virginia and one related to Idaho, and both had basically put in Save Girls Sports situations. Idaho was the very first to do that, and that case was Little versus Hecox, and then West Virginia had a situation with a girl that essentially ended up with a boy taking their trophy. So we can get into that story, but and so it was really, I mean, we've been waiting for this case for quite some time. Now I need to clarify for folks. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean every state now has to protect girls and boys and keep them separated in sports. It simply says if your state moves forward to do this, they absolutely have that right. And so, unfortunately for Virginia, where we have not yet done this at the legislative level, we still have a ways to go to get the law passed. But it can't be challenged now.
It does mean that our state doesn't have the legal excuses
no legal
that
excuses.
the leftists were using to block it.
Yes.
So that's encouraging. I do want, Victoria, if you could really talk about, especially the safety issues on this. They're so important because, as I heard you say yourself, one of the most compelling things, if not the most compelling, is the story behind these cases about the actual girls impacted.
Yeah, the West Virginia case in particular, West Virginia versus BPJ, it involves a young girl, Adalea, and it was really about this boy that started competing in her sport and ultimately defeated more than 470 girls in track and field. This is track and field, and 1,400 times was able to participate in these track and field events. So, I mean, this is not a small, some people think, oh, this is just a one-off. It's one kid. It's just harming one girl. Because, I mean, even if you hear the Riley Gaines story, you might think, oh, that's just Riley Gaines. No, there's a ton of people that get impacted by this. And so basically, when you think about a kid that has defeated that many girls, that's that many trophies taken away, that many roster spots, that many scholarship opportunities. And so just last month, BPJ won the women's state championship in shot put. So there goes a female award to a biological male. And so, and really, I think what honestly has been eye-opening for me, I got to hear both the parents of the young girl on a panel last year speaking about the case, and then the young girl herself just last week. And listening to this, it isn't even just, I think we think about the literal championships and the scholarships. But in this case, I think folks need to understand that this boy was in their locker room. So again, the private spaces is a big deal here. And that's truly where there's some safety issues also. But this young boy was actually sexually harassing her in the locker room. And it's really a tragic story. But it's all the reasons why boys and girls should not be in private spaces together when we're changing and vulnerable and all of the things. So she has a really hard story that isn't just about the trophies and the championships and all the things that we think about.
Yeah, that harassment, she said, led to her just leaving the sport.
She ended up leaving the sport.
And also the discouragement, because I think I did hear Adelaide saying that she felt like she lost out on the chance at the championship because of this boy taking all those titles and winning all that. And so they are bumping real girls off the podium.
And people don't realize her story, she said she went quite some time without even telling her parents what was being said to her in the locker room, because she was, our kids are being programmed that they're supposed to accept this. They're being told by adults this is okay. And then when something happens, it's like, what am I supposed to do? And so like when we think about young kids trying to handle this themselves in these situations, I think that gets lost too, is like we think about it in the mind of an adult and go, well, just handle it. No, this girl literally, like it took her a while to like even say something to her parents, and her parents were horrified by what they heard.
I mean, that makes me think of our dad on our Speak Up team in Chesterfield County, who spoke at our Parental Rights Day press conference, and he spoke about protecting the girls in locker rooms. And he comes home, and his daughter tells him, I didn't say anything to you before, but there's been a boy in our locker room, and I didn't say anything to you, but since I liked what you said, so now I'm going to tell you. But before I was afraid to tell you because I was afraid you would freak out as my dad and embarrass me.
Yep, so, the kids are like they don't know how to handle this, and they shouldn't at that age. They shouldn't have to be handling this. And I think that what's really great is that the Supreme Court has made a clear line here, and there were two issues at play, equal access and Title IX. And so in both cases, on both issues, the majority of the Supreme Court said, Title IX should be interpreted by biology, which is a really important sort of underlying principle here. And then we also went on the equal access side of it too. And so that's a big deal, and it should shut down schools doing the wrong thing.
Let's put a pin in that because I want you to come back to that. But let's just hear from these girls.
Yeah, we should.
Let's just hear from Adelaide.
A lot of girls after BPJ came into our locker room, started going to the bathroom. They started changing in stalls, which was not really normal. You would have kids separated to try to not be around him, but it was still hard because during track meets, you had to be around him, and girls were just uncomfortable. They didn't want to be around him. I know other teams started canceling coming to track meets, so their girls didn't have to put up with it. And it's just really sad to see all that happening, which with girls deserve to have that space, and it's just been taken away.
How do you feel knowing that those allegations are still being denied even to this day?
It is really frustrating of my school district because I went to them with the issues and I thought that they would handle it and I thought that they would protect me. And I know that they confirmed it happened. I know several other children confirmed that it was happening to me, and they completely ignored it. They attempted to silence me. They attempted to silence my parents. And that's really frustrating, especially as a 14-year-old. I just wanted to compete in sports. It's really hard to think about even now, to know how many other kids could they be doing that to? How many other situations of sexual abuse are happening that they're silencing? It's just really frustrating.
Well, Victoria, another thing I think interesting about these cases, both the West Virginia and Idaho one, it was actually the boys or the men in this case.
Right, the girls are the defendants.
They were the ones that started this lawsuit. Yeah. So we wanted this addressed, but the girls weren't the ones driving this whole thing that ended up in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, these boys are demanding to be taking over the girls' sports.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that. And also, I think the Idaho case, because you were talking about West Virginia and Adelaide, but the Idaho one, they were the first state to pass one of these girls sports protection laws.
And now
Tell
there's
us a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's actually very cool. We've actually worked with a legislator out there, Barbara Earhart, who introduced the bill and really pushed it out there, and we've actually had her come testify here, and she was a basketball coach, and I mean, she just knew the value of women having something that is uniquely them competing against themselves. But I think Idaho really had to step out in being the first. I mean, I have to say, like, states that are willing to step forward, and there have been so many that have followed, which has been fantastic. I mean, I think we're at 27 or something like that.
Yeah,
so,
27.
I mean, we really have a lot of states. I wish Virginia would get on that list, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from one of the girls out of Idaho just real quick. This is, let me look at her name real quick. Maddie Kenyon was one of the ones that stepped into this case because they wanted to defend girls because Maddie had experienced this herself, with a boy competing on a girls' team and taking away opportunities and that kind of thing. So let's just listen to her real quick.
My experience is that I got a scholarship to Idaho State. That scholarship took me to a school I wouldn't have gone to without it. I got a nursing degree, which is a degree I wouldn't have gotten if I wasn't at Idaho State. That got me a career and an ability to pave a future for my life. I met my husband in that town, and I met lifelong friends. And so sports just means so much to me because it truly has set my life up to what it has become. And these are opportunities women didn't have before Title IX, at least as numerous opportunities. And so protecting this is so important because it creates equal opportunity for women to get those opportunities. And when you put men in women's sports and they take those roster spots and those tentative scholarships, women are sidelined with nowhere else to go.
Well, Victoria, I want to go back to what you were starting to talk about there were really two components of this decision that came from the High Court. And one was on Title IX and one was on equal protection. You know, we see all the headlines out there that they ruled 6-3, but that was on the equal protection. It was actually 9-0 on Title IX.
Yeah, I mean, 9 judges essentially agreed that Title IX has to be interpreted with biological sex. And that is kind of like the bedrock thing we've been waiting for, because that's been the game, right? If you can reinterpret Title IX and you can say that what they really meant when we created all this, you know, women's sports is just gender, how you feel about yourself. It changes, and that's a game changer, and that's kind of what they've banked all of this on. And so that is a very big deal that we had 9 judges basically, you know, have to support that. I mean, I think it's crazy, even the most liberal judge kind of had to acknowledge that. Now, the other side kind of wants to handle it case by case. That's their solution. So the liberals on the court, instead, you know, they kind of could acknowledge this, but those that wrote there's always a dissent, and those that didn't agree with equal access, so that, you know, kind of said, well, can't we just handle this like every time it occurs, we look at the individual situation? Well, that would be a disaster.
And micromanaging from courts, top down.
Can you imagine how everything would just end up in court? We'd be every athlete would be in court all the time.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of universal standard where, based on male and female biology, we have protections for girls, both physically and their privacy, safety across the board. And there were at least a majority of justices that got that. So Justice Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion. I'm just going to put a little excerpt on the screen here, and I'll read it out loud for those of you that don't have the advantage of the screen. He talks about those, quote, physical differences between men and women are enduring. He's quoting past cases. And then he says, quote, the differences include, among other things, height, weight, strength, speed, endurance, and jumping ability. Therefore, in contact sports, forcing female athletes to compete against males can create significant safety risk. And in virtually all competitive sports, forcing female athletes to compete against males can undermine competitive fairness. And this is representing the court as the majority opinion. But isn't it crazy, Victoria, that we have to have in a Supreme Court record that males can undermine competitive fairness for females? We have to have that stated.
It does feel like we're stating the obvious at the highest level of the land. Like, this guy has a law degree, has like worked so hard his whole big career to get to the United States Supreme Court just to say, hey, boys are boys, girls are girls.
There's
and guess
a height
what?
difference.
I don't know. It's a little funny. I'm sorry.
In a sad way. Yeah. Well, and as you were saying, the dissenters they were forced to recognize the biological reality.
Deny that.
But they're trying to get around that by, we need to go case by case and create these subclasses of transgender, or however they were trying to get around that.
And I think Kavanaugh said something like it's a recipe for chaos. It's like an enormous practical and administrative problem. Yeah, I think that's an understatement for sure, because it's going to be undoable if somebody were to try that. I mean, that's what it is now, and it's undoable.
Yeah. Well, just to mention one other quote here, no surprise, Justice Clarence Thomas was the most blunt, giving the unvarnished truth here. So I'm just
going to love about him.
Yeah, put this on the screen. I just got to read a little bit of this. He says, men and boys with gender dysphoria are not women or girls, even if they believe that they are. Sex is an immutable biological characteristic. It is binary. We still have to hear the opposite. Yeah. He says it is binary, and man and woman, boy, and girl are the terms that correspond to adults and children of each sex. To use language to obscure reality, to show indifference regarding the truth, is to lie to the public and cease to treat our fellow citizens as equals. And that is powerful in a concurring opinion from Justice Thomas.
I love that. I mean, I think he is not just saying the obvious, but he's saying, and to do something other than that is to lie. And, words have to matter. What they mean has to matter, or we don't have common ways to relate to each other. If we say girl and we don't mean something biological, I mean something biological and you mean however they feel about themselves, we can't even, and that's some of the struggle in our society right now. So he's saying, look, anything else is a lie.
Why do you think it's important to him to point out that sex is actually an immutable biological characteristic?
Well, because that's actually, I hate to say it, but that's the whole basis of discrimination codes has been like, it has to be an immutable characteristic that can't be changed. A female can't become a male, and that's what he's saying. You can't just magically, hope that you'll all of a sudden, or try to take hormones enough to grow, 6 inches to be able to, compete with guys in basketball. It's not going to happen.
And that's key to the whole Title IX and why it was 9-0 is because Title IX was put in place to address discrimination against women in these sports opportunities, other education opportunities. And if you redefine, it has to be based on male and female, otherwise you take away.
There's really no reason for Title IX. If there is no difference, or if it's all in your head, then there is no reason for Title IX. Let's just, you're just back to, we were back to pre-Title IX terms. And I think that's why we see so many female athletes care so much about this, is because they know they know that having to compete against men puts them, out of reach for scholarships and for championships. And we know how good sports have been for women.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about where this is at in the culture, because you mentioned earlier 27 states have passed some form of protect girls' sports legislation.
And we're getting the NCAA and the U.S. and the International Olympic Committee. Like, people are finally, there's sort of this moment of, I guess when these new ideas sort of get center stage, everyone feels like they have to go along with it. So we had a lot of confusion in the sports arena, but I think everybody's kind of coming back to, okay, we're allowed to state the obvious and put rules in according to the obvious. So I feel good about the direction that we're going. And it follows very closely after the Skermetti decision, where the court also 6-3 upheld Tennessee's right to ban puberty blockers and hormone procedures for kids, precisely because the science is unsettled. It's like this grand social experiment we're doing. It isn't working.
So both those decisions, that was also Supreme Court decision, Skermetti decision, both have as a thread protection.
Yeah, for kids in particular.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious, do you feel like we have headway in the culture on this with people recognizing biological fact, back to common sense? Or do you feel like it's still kind of a half and half struggle? Because 27 is really just only a little bit more than half the states. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think the majority of the American population now knows that this idea that we are pushing trans things on kids, that we're allowing them to make life-altering decisions, I think everybody is moving on board with that, with the exception of the base of the Democrat Party. And that's why we still have states that don't have this. It isn't because the majority of their districts don't want it. It's because if you have a Democrat-controlled state and the base of their party, that means if they go the wrong way according to their base, they'll have a primary and they'll be taken out of office if they're not extreme enough. That's the reality. So politics is the reason that this is still not in every state. That's certainly the case for Virginia. I guarantee you, I've seen polls. We have the numbers in Virginia to have Save Girls Sports easily. Like 70% are on board with this. It's just, we've got Democrats in office.
Well, let's talk about that then. It was interesting that ADF, after this happened, because Alliance Defending Freedom, let's give them credit for leading these cases, and they worked alongside the attorney generals in both these states on these cases. But the way they summarized it was, the ruling is both a victory and a warning, is kind of how they characterized it, because they were saying that the question now is not whether the law may protect girls and women, because that's been established, but whether it will. So now that's the question in Virginia, Victoria. Where do we go from here in Virginia.
Well, I think, I mean, you've now got Supreme Court decisions, so there's not much to stand on. So when they argue against Save Girls Sports, they have to do it out of pure ideology. There's no legal basis now, so that's helpful. You got the federal government bearing down on school districts for locker room privacy. I mean, Loudoun, Fairfax, we know they are under some serious federal pressure. So I think these things will culminate in the right direction. It's just it can't happen soon enough for our girls athletes.
Well, those 5 counties in Nova you mentioned, they are under a direct investigation under Title IX.
Yes.
So this definitely should impact that. But they keep bucking it, and they keep citing the infamous Grimm decision.
Yes.
What do you think this will, finally shed some light on that thing that they keep using to hide behind?
Yeah, so this was, if you remember, this was Grimm. It was out of Gloucester. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. But the bottom line is the Grimm decision is based entirely on Title IX. In order for that decision to stand, you have to agree with the idea that Title IX allows for not just your biology, but your, how you feel about your gender. And so that decision is going to fall. It's just a matter of, I guess somebody's going to have to go to court to have it officially struck down. But the bottom line is all the basis for the Grimm decision is now gone. So if the foundation's gone, there's nothing left here. So these school districts, I mean, they can hang their hat on it, but there's actually nothing to hang on.
So all that needs to happen is for some courageous families and girls to stand up, and boys as well. We saw our team.
The Loudoun boys at the locker room.
Yeah, and I will mention, it's not just in Nova where you have some ridiculousness coming from school boards. Just recently, we heard from our Newport News Speak Up team that the school board had kind of behind closed doors, not really kind of staying quiet about it, reversed all these parent protections. You remember, our listeners, a lot of you will remember that under the Young administration, they reversed what Northam had done with pushing transgender things that violated parental rights, made it possible for schools to hide things from parents if kids were experimenting at school. And then the parents in Newport News went and got that reversed at their school board level, and then they put it right back. So
we have to be vigilant. I mean, this is the warning for every Virginian. You have to be on top of your school board. No matter whether we have a great Supreme Court decision or not, they all find ways to try to do what they want to do without public pressure and, unfortunately, sometimes litigation to hold them accountable. And, if Founding Freedoms Law Center has to be a part of that, we will. I mean, there is no reason at this point that we should be still listening to school boards claim Grimm as the reason they're doing things that actually do harm children. And I think the next thing, too, is, I think there'll be a Supreme Court case at some point that deals with the safety locker room issues. I mean, we this was about sports, but there's still all the privacy issues yet to kind of get all the way up there. And I think that's the next step, and that's a safety thing, too.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention, too, the Loudoun County 3 case. This is one thing I will say that I hope comes out of this big case at the Supreme Court level, and that is to stop making the people that are harassed, that are the victims lacking privacy and safety, the villains and the media narrative, and even at the school boards treating them that way. And we saw that in the Loudoun 3 case, where they're the ones being videotaped in their locker room. And they're treated as the villains. And do you feel like this case will help flip that?
Thankfully we got a good settlement for the parents there. So Loudoun had to settle with the parents. That's about all I guess we're allowed to say about it. But I do think the bottom line is those boys were trying to speak the truth. And now you got Justice Clarence Thomas saying, like, this is what is true, everything else is lies. And those boys were just speaking the truth. And they got claimed to be sexual harassers and to be, violating sexual discrimination. That kind of activity, schools are going to have really thin ground to stand on if they try to do that kind of thing in the future.
And we are ready for that.
Happy to represent, I'm sure.
So it's going to take not only the Family Foundation and the Founding Freedoms Law Center representing, but you all who are listening right now, keep speaking up until girls and our students and our families, that are, boys as well in their locker rooms, that they are permanently protected. So we're not going to give up on this. And if you want to find out what you can do to stand with us and just learn about the latest cases, I do encourage you to go to familyfoundation.org. That's familyfoundation.org, and check out the Founding Freedoms Law Center too. I always, sometimes I get this website wrong. I want to make sure I get it. It's foundingfreedomslaw.org.
And you can get there from ours, but foundingfreedomslaw.org.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. There was a lot to talk about today, but I'm glad we were able to end on an encouraging note, and there's a lot to be thankful for as we mark our 250th. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.